Hi there, and welcome to the Creative Operations Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Groom, and in this podcast, we'll be talking with creative operations leaders in all kinds of industries, from franchising to finance, from healthcare to hospitality and beyond. We'll be looking to uncover best practices and to see trends that are coming to help you keep your creative operations on brand and on budget at the same time. Enjoy. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Creative Operations Podcast 2.0. I'm your host, Kevin Groom, and as you guys know, we spend a lot of time here thinking about the problems of major brands that are trying to distribute their marketing content and insights and intelligence across large distributed networks out there in the field. And so I'm really pleased today to have with us Christina Strong-Regan. She's a director of marketing at AssuredPartners of Michigan. And in that role, Christina is part of a national insurance brokerage network that is vast in its size and is rapid in its growth. I think just over the past 10 years or so, sort of a hockey stick of growth for AssuredPartners. So Christina, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You betcha. Now, the audience always loves to hear a little bit about your individual journey into this crazy world of creative operations, as we describe it. So tell us a little bit about how you got here, where you are today.
Sure. So my journey into marketing creative operations started in college. So my two majors were journalism and media and information. Originally, I thought I was going to go into news reporting, but I had about 11 internships in college in the areas of video production, photography, communications, social media, and arts and entertainment reporting. So I did all of these internships in college because I wanted to gain experience in multiple areas. Having all these internships actually helped me realize that I didn't want to be a news reporter. So I preferred the areas of marketing and communications. So when I graduated, instead of trying to start my career in news, I sought out a job in marketing, communications, or digital media. And my first job was actually at a news television station in Grand Rapids, Michigan. However, I didn't work in the news reporting department. I actually worked on the lifestyle side of the station. I oversaw 5 separate lifestyle and community brands. I also oversaw all the social media accounts for each of those brands across the different platforms. I wrote articles, I did photo galleries, I developed digital content to support broadcast initiatives, I led a team of writers. I did a lot of different things that were digital related, and that was a lot of fun. After that, I transitioned from lifestyle to roads, essentially. And I was a communications manager for an association. Same premise from my last job. I wore a lot of hats in that role. So in addition to doing the communication strategy, I was the media liaison, the fund development lead, I was the event coordinator of a large trade show, and I was editor-in-chief of the quarterly magazine. So that was also a great experience as well, being able to do a lot of different areas and dive into a lot of areas that I hadn't did before in terms of marketing and creative communications. And then in my current role now as director of marketing for AssuredPartners of Michigan, which has locations throughout the state, I work in multiple areas of marketing and sales. And that includes email marketing, event marketing, lifecycle marketing, social media management, sales enablement, all over. There's a lot of variety, which I enjoy as well. So in each of these roles, I've had the creative freedom and was able to bring ideas and enhancements to the respective organizations.
Well, in the world of AssuredPartners, first, before I dive into that, I just wanted to mention Grand Rapids. What a fascinating market it is. Grand Rapids for decades now has been used as sort of a stand-in for the larger Chicago metro. So whenever we see major brands, doing a lot of testing, Grand Rapids is one of those places that gets that test creative. Syracuse, New York, is another one that's very like that. So it's like this little microcosm of a much larger kind of marketing and communications challenge. And it sounds like for you, Michigan is that microcosm of the AssuredPartners national marketing challenge, yeah?
Yeah, so it's funny you said Grand Rapids, because Grand Rapids is actually not that far from Chicago. There's a lot of people who come to South Haven, like the west side of Michigan, for vacation. So that's actually very true. Chicago and Grand Rapids are very close to one another.
Demographically, it's amazing. The fit is really good. And that's why we see when they do testing in Grand Rapids, it tells you how it's going to play in Chicago. It's really neat.
It is very neat. And to go back to your question about the local AP of Michigan versus the national. So so my focus area is the state of Michigan. That's where my primary area is. There are regional and other states that have their own other marketing and sales teams, because we're, like you said, we're such a big organization, right? And then we're also supported by our corporate team. So like what corporate kind of helps build from the national level trickles down to the regional, trickles down to the local area. And so my focus is helping make sure that locally we're in sync with what's going on for AP as a whole.
So it's amazing that, you sit in that chair where the local is inheriting what's happening at headquarters, but then making it its own. And, just for the audience to know, AssuredPartners has really brought together not just, brand new agency operations in various markets, but pre-existing agency operations, insurance agency operations that, have developed their own presence and their own brand identity and their own practices over years and sometimes decades before. Is that fair to say, Christina?
Yeah. Definitely. AssuredPartners has definitely brought together hundreds of successful insurance agencies all under one umbrella. Absolutely.
It must be a really fascinating thing to sort of take the story as it's being told at the national level and apply it in these individual environments. Tell us a little bit about how that works. Do you often find that folks are really eager to pick up on the national story and make it their own, or do they really want to create their own story and make it part of the national? How does that work?
I think I'm going to talk about it from the angle of incorporating an agency into the fabric of the brand, right? Because when you're bringing on a new agency, right, you're doing this transition. And so in Michigan, we have 7 locations. And so ensuring that each local office becomes part of the fabric of the brand, is interesting, right? It's essentially the goal. But when an agency becomes a part of AssuredPartners, they are used to operating independently. And many have established their own brand identity in their respective local communities. So to facilitate this transition, right, agencies are provided communications and resources to successfully implement this transition into their local markets. That would include everything from redesigning the marketing collateral to presentations on brand values and messaging to the distribution of brand and style guides. And that's part of that transition process. Another element of successfully integrating the agency into the AP brand is organization and good planning. So there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to bringing what used to be an independent agency underneath the AssuredPartners brand. As I stated earlier, logistically, you have your marketing and communication pieces, right? You have to get new marketing materials for trade show items, brochures, promotional products, everything else. But you must also put together like a communication and a PR plan for your staff and your clients and your vendors and to the public to announce this transition. Like, it's a big undertaking. So go back to asking about local and national, like, the end goal is for everyone to be a part of the AP brand. The goal is everyone to be one unified message, one unified look, one unified operation, so that we are presenting ourselves, as one unified organization. And so that's something that we've been working on locally. And with effective communication, cross-functional collaboration, and a roadmap to bring it all together, it has allowed us to build a strong, unified organization of insurance agencies that can provide our clients with the highest level of service and expertise.
That's awesome. But so, when you talk about that transition, I would assume that for some folks, it might take just a few months. For other folks, it might kind of soak in over the years. Do you find that there are common sort of pain points or milestones that you hit as that independent pre-existing brand becomes part of AP? Things that you really have to get over the hump to get to the point where you're all singing from the same songbook?
Yeah. So actually, because a lot of the rebrands that I have done and I'm working on, I've kind of done as a one-person team. I actually have this big spreadsheet of all these areas of change that need to happen. I have a list of, even basic things from voicemails and email signatures to bigger things like communicating to your client block to bigger things such as changing the building sign name. So yeah, it definitely takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. And then even the name change, people ask, what do we call it now? And what do we refer it to? And what's the acronym? And what's the brand colors? And what is the messaging? Is there a tagline? All the education pieces that go along with it, not just internally, but then you got to take it out and do it externally as well. So it's definitely a process that takes, I would say, anywhere from a few months, depending on how fast you go, up to like 2 years. It doesn't happen overnight at all.
Yep. It sounds to me like just the mention you had of, your voicemail messaging. right? And what is the vocabulary you're using? Something so basic and day to day, and yet it's a part of that huge spreadsheet. I'm sure that you've had to run 7 different times just in the state of Michigan, and so hundreds of times that playbook kind of has to be run. Let me ask a question on the sort of not just the results of that, but the human factor. We often at Pike & Nine, we like to think that our systems, for sure, they're there to distribute marketing assets, but they're also there to help transfer some marketing experience and intelligence and insight, so that the folks at the local level aren't just given a fish, they're sort of taught to fish for themselves along the way. Tell me a little bit about that. Do you find that you really kind of play a role of marketing coach as well as marketing executor for these 7 locations, and, the folks in your chair do that?
I would say that it's both. There's a lot of great input and ideas that come from many team members that work on our various business lines. So we cover commercial, insurance, personal lines, and employee benefits. And so everyone always has a lot of good ideas from all of those department areas. I put together a lot of the campaigns and execute them across our channels, such as email, social, and events. But I love to get feedback, especially from sales, because sales reps are in the field on a day-to-day basis. I always say marketing and sales can't work in silos. And I think each group does great work when there's lots of collaboration. So sales and marketing department collaborating is something that we've been steadily improving at our organization. And because of this, I think we have lots of knowledge and insight sharing across both departments. And we also still operate, though, in client mode, too, because I still support, the marketing department still supports the sales and different internal teams, too, even our client teams, right? They need branding and marketing materials. So it's both. It's not just client mode where the marketing department is supporting the internal teams and not just they're sharing knowledge with the marketing department and the marketing department is sharing knowledge with them so we both can create great outcomes.
I got you. And I would assume that, along the way, when you're in, I love the phrase client mode too, there's sort of coach mode and then client mode. Let's get this stuff done. Tell me a little bit about, how you've seen technology help you guys as a team scale to the number of locations and the number of agencies that you're supporting, all of whom or each of whom you're taking through this very complex multi-year, transition as they become a part of the AP brand. Tell me a little bit about what you guys are seeing as your tech stack and how you get all of this done.
That's a very good question. I'm always looking at marketing technologies and what technologies are going to be the most useful for our local offices. But part of that's also dependent on what technologies are being rolled out from the national level. It's never cut and dry. There's always some sort of reevaluation of what we're doing. Is it working? Can we be improving it? And so obviously CRM systems, email systems, SharePoint, systems where you can share information with each other and everyone can access different tools or access different resources that they need. Being able to communicate instantly with your teams, that's another, marketing technology tool. Video technology tools for sales, for the sales department, be able to personalize messages and things to potential clients. Our tech stack is actually, it's not super large, but our tech stack is definitely a few different pieces and they each serve a different role. And part of that is customized to the local area. And then part of that is from the national, these are the tech pieces that they're rolling out to us, and these are the pieces that we have to use. And then how do we enhance that for what we need to do locally and make that easier and simpler for our sales and our client teams be able to roll out and do what they need to do. So from a technology standpoint, I would say that we're definitely using all the basic systems that everybody else is probably using, like I said, CRMs, emails, and stuff like that, video, but we're constantly going through and looking at, is there anything that we need to change? And actually, we're going through several changes this year. So I'm not even going to say that everything I said is going to stay the same because we're actually going through and looking at some of that stuff again. So it's an ever evolving door.
Yep, constantly evolving and thinking about how to improve it, which, in some ways is something Jack Welch from GE used to talk about years ago, right? But you never saw it in this very pragmatic way. Nowadays, national organization constantly reevaluating the technology that it's rolling out and doing so much more quickly and much more nimbly than we ever thought possible, back in 20 years ago, let's say. So that puts an enormous sort of constant level of change strain, all the way through that whole waterfall you were describing, from national to regional, from regional to support, down to the states and down to those individual folks. And yet it sounds to me like with all that change still going on, you guys still get the work out the door and keep those individual salespeople and individual opportunities front and center in your attention day after day, week after week. It's a remarkable balancing act you're striking.
Yeah, definitely. Juggling, marketing and all the change management and stuff. But I think one of the key strategies, at least I used to manage competing demands and changing factors all of the time, is effective planning and prioritization. So I have a well-structured project management process in place. This includes clearly defined roles and responsibilities, timelines and deadlines, and regular updates to ensure the projects are on track. I also look for efficiencies. So if there is opportunity for templates or automation or the implementation of a repeatable system, then I use it. So while I execute campaigns and I provide guidance and support, I also equip our locations to take an active role in their own marketing efforts. So that would include providing them with the necessary tools and resources to execute their own campaigns. And this empowerment could be customizable social media posts, it could be personal event invitations, it could be email templates, and a lot of other different items. And this is one of the systems that I like to use at our organization. It's a self-service model for marketing and communication resources. And so this can be achieved through a digital asset management software or a sales enablement software. So for example, if someone says to me, I'm going to be doing a sales presentation and I need a PowerPoint template, their template is readily available for that individual. Or I need to add some images to my presentation. There's a library of photos available to use, or I need to grab the logo. It's all saved in a central repository for easy access. And the most I have to do in this self-service model system is remind someone where it's located. So I also use a lot of checklists to stay on track. And then by working with each location, using project management techniques and empowering them with their own resources, I'm able to ensure that our marketing and communication initiatives are as efficient as possible and that change doesn't hinder us as much when it does come along.
Well, that, you are singing our tune as well, or we're singing your tune when it comes to thinking about that central repository and that self-service model. Those two things, and templates, of course, so that's our stock and trade. So we couldn't agree more. But, underneath all of that, because I don't want to make this a pitch about Campaign Drive or anything like that, but underneath all that, the thing that remains the same, even as you guys cycle through solutions to find the one that's really optimizing your efforts, the thing that remains the same is this project management discipline. This notion that, you can keep everybody moving forward without anybody feeling like they're at the end of the queue or, getting rushed or getting forgotten, one or the other. That project management discipline, it seems to me, just has remained a constant from the very beginning. And it's what is allowing you guys at AP to scale in the way that you have. And again, the growth of that single brand out of a pre-existing industry is a remarkable business story, to be told. And it seems to me that what we've covered today is how the marketing component of that has been evolving. In the way you've described it, really being, right at the front lines of this effort all the way through. So that's a really great story. One last question for you. When you look over the horizon, so you got your tools and you're constantly thinking about how to make them more efficient. What do you think is a new tool that's going to arrive or is on the horizon for you guys? Could it be AI is creeping its way into your work, or are you finding that that personalized video is the forefront for you guys? What do you think is over the horizon in the next year or two?
Yeah, so we've been enhancing our virtual marketing and sales strategy, everything from personalized video messages to the ins and outs of webinars, including Live, broadcast, emoji usage, and so many more areas. Interactive content is another area we've been focusing on utilizing more, such as scorecards, checklists, and polls, because it allows potential clients to be engaged. It allows us to increase our data capture, and you can personalize it for the audience you're trying to reach. So for the future, however, I do think AI tools are going to be used more in marketing and sales moving forward across the industry. That's not something that we have dived into, particularly in our area here just yet, but it is definitely something that is going to be on the list of things to explore. A lot of existing software is implementing AI technology, CRM systems. There's a lot of new AI-powered software tools that have recently launched. Everybody's talking about ChatGPT, and there's going to be a lot more coming up. I actually just attended a have like 4-hour event by the Marketing AI Institute about all of these different changes in terms of AI tools, and particularly in use for writing, for using it for writing and content creation and all of that. So I think figuring out exactly what tools to use and how to incorporate them into the day-to-day operations of a marketing department is going to be the main focus for a lot of organizations in the future.
Couldn't agree more. What we have been seeing a lot, and what we're starting to build in ourselves, particularly in regulated industries where the content needs to conform to some very strict rules, we're seeing AI as either a great starter kit, to create content that then can be assembled, or for allowing users to intelligently assemble things and then automatically apply the disclaimers and the disclosures that are required based on the need, the state, or jurisdiction, etc. So couldn't agree with you more. But listen, let me pause there because we've used up a lot of your time. I see we just went over the 20. Thank you so much, Christina, for spending the time with us again, everybody. This is Christina Regan. She's the director of Strong-Regan, director of marketing at AssuredPartners of Michigan. A great story to keep an eye on. And thank you for spending the time with us.
Thanks for having me.
You betcha. Everybody, we'll see you on the next episode of the Creative Operations Podcast 2.0.